Welcome into the Miami Hurricanes Football Vision YouTube channel, brand new channel. I'm your host, Juice, and really excited about this endeavor, this venture. And I welcome in all Hurricane and football fans alike, but certainly for my Miami Hurricane fans, this channel is for you. We're going to be focusing on what's happening on the field, X's and O's. We really want to dig into the film. There's a ton of great content out there with respect to Miami on and off the field. I felt like there's room for more insight with respect to the X's and O's and what's happening between the lines. And that's the area that I want to focus on with respect to this channel. All right. So with that, we're going to turn our attention to this Miami Hurricanes matchup with the USF Bulls. The Bulls coming off a pair of top 25 wins. Miami obviously played USF last year, led by Cam Ward. Got off to a little bit of a slow start, but once Cam Ward got it going, Miami beat USF handedly. That said, I think USF is a better team defensively as compared to last year. In that matchup, there was a lot of man coverage that they played. They tried to send some additional rushers. You can see on this particular snap, they only have one guy with his hand in the ground, trying to confuse the protection, and really it was to no avail effectively, right? And I do expect Miami to control the line of scrimmage in this game. But I will say, and I acknowledge, USF is playing some good defense, I think, by and large. Still, there's a caveat there. I thought in that matchup, having watched that film, watched that footage against UF, the Gators beat themselves quite a bit. They beat themselves quite a bit. And when we talk about the three keys to a Miami win in this matchup with USF, I think one of the main things is that you can't beat yourself. When you get into scoring range, into the red zone, the red area, you got to put touchdowns up, not field goals. And ultimately, that's what the Gators did. They could not convert. In fact, they had two touchdowns taken off the board due to penalties. They had over 100 yards in penalties. Those types of things you just can't have. USF built confidence. They hung around, and they ultimately win. I maintain that Miami, player for player, is a substantially more talented team. USF is coming in with some confidence. They're playing with some confidence. They don't really have anything to lose, right? It's house money for USF. But if Miami does a good job of executing, converting on third down, again, finding the end zone as opposed to field goals, this one can get out of hand quickly. Stop the video here for just a second. One thing I wanted to do was bring up the initial matchup, and I'm going to dig more into this game on the channel. So be sure to like and subscribe, tune in, because there's going to be so much more content coming out. Miami Hurricane fans over the course of the season and into the future. But I mentioned I thought the Gators at times beat themselves. Give credit to USF, but they beat themselves. I mentioned the two touchdowns that were taken off the board. They also got away from Jordan Baugh, their starting running back, who was having a great day. Great day. I think he had 11 or 12 carries in the first half. He ends up with 18, and ultimately they lose. It just was bad all around. But I will say this. I go back to the first half of that game where the Gators scored twice. They scored TDs on two separate occasions, and they were both called back due to a penalty. So with that said, I think Miami, in the first matchup against Notre Dame, just outside the red area, there were opportunities. There were opportunities, and we left some meat on the bone. And again, when you're the better team, the only way the opposition can hang around is if you're turning the football over, you're giving them short fields, you're not capitalizing, you're not scoring touchdowns. I'm going to continue to reiterate that here as part of the keys to this matchup. And on this particular play, I thought Carson Beck, he missed a read. It should have been a layup. Beck has played very well. I know he did not necessarily get an opportunity to play during the spring because of the injury. He only gets a short, truncated fall session, but he looks good. He looks good for the most part. But this is the type of play that we just can't have repeat itself. I'm sure when he looked at the tape, he was kicking himself, right? So Miami's in 11 personnel, 3 receivers, 1 tight end, 1 back. You notice they're on the left hash, and effectively you have a single high. When it's all said and done, it's going to be a single high. You're going to see that other safety there right around the 20-yard line. He's going to drop down into the box. And Beck just simply doesn't read this out. Now, I understand what he was thinking, and I'm going to run the tape here in just a second. I understand what he was thinking. With that safety coming down, I got a one-on-one. I'm going to take my shot up top. But what he did not see is the tight end here at the bottom of the line of scrimmage just break completely free because the safety's eyes was in the backfield and he blew his assignment. This should have been a layup. This should have absolutely been a layup. So we'll run the tape. All right. And you notice where the deep safety is. He's going to work his way to the middle of the field. He's currently on the left hash, going to work his way to the middle of the field. He's wide open. 87 is wide open right there. You'll see it really well and get a good shot of this from the end zone angle. But these are the types of plays in my mind that if you don't capitalize on them, a lesser team can stick around and potentially pull the upset if you don't make sure that you capitalize on this. This should have been a walk-in TD. Pitch and catch, walk-in TD. So again, when I talk about the opponent and what USF did or didn't do against their previous opponent, the Florida Gators, the Gators missed some opportunities, right? Whether it be from an execution perspective, penalties, whatever the case may be, they missed some opportunities to put touchdowns on the board, and ultimately they lose the game. So interestingly enough, on the very next snap, Beck finds Malachi Tony. Malachi Tony ran a great route. Beck finds him, and we did score. So it didn't hurt us ultimately, but that's the type of thing that we just can't have happen, particularly when you're playing a team that, is trying to play spoiler. Up next, we're going to take a look at the USF offense. And I don't think the USF offense is particularly inspired, right? There isn't a ton of creativity here. You're going to get a heavy dosage of Brown, the quarterback, in terms of quarterback draw, power, lead, zone read. They'll move the pocket a little bit. They'll do some of the bubbles, and then they'll take a shot. What they want to do is they want to run the football, force the defensive backs and safeties to creep up, and then kind of throw it over your head. Make you defend the width of the field until you commit more defenders to the box, and then ultimately they go up top. But it's going to be a heavy dosage Byron Brown in terms of the run game. In fact, through 2 weeks, USF has 57 rushes, and Brown, their quarterback, has 31 of those. He's accounting for over 50% of all the carries, and he's their leading rusher. So my thought process here in terms of how we go about controlling USF and truly stymieing them, because I think we have the advantage in terms of athlete for athlete. Across the line of scrimmage, we're bigger, we're faster, we're stronger. I think at the second level, guys are playing assignment sound football. We get Wesley Bissant back. And what's really been impressive in terms of the secondary, again, playing assignment sound football, just doing your job. One of the main things that we had an issue with last year, as most of the Canes fans are aware, we didn't set a physical edge. We were outflanked time and again. There was always challenges with communication. In fact, if a team just simply sent someone in motion, we didn't know how to respond to that. So with that being said, I think it's going to be very important that we have disciplined rush lanes and understand that when USF goes empty, and I want to run that back here for a second. I want to give you a good example. I think recognition and being assignment sound is key. Disciplined pass rush lanes as well, right? I expect Miami to play a lot of zone in this particular game. I want eyes on the quarterback, a running quarterback, a quarterback that can use his legs. We want to force him to read out the defense, throw the ball into tight windows. Now, understand that it is easier. You can play faster when you play man. And I get that. We have a new defensive coordinator. I think he understands that. But we need to have the discipline to be able to play zone, to be able to understand the relationship between receiver, tight end, and your teammates in terms of who is responsible for what. And eventually zone turns into man, right? If you don't get home, zone turns into man. I want to see Mesidor, Bain, Moten, that group up front. Scott, I want to see that group up front do kind of a vice grip rush. I don't necessarily want them rushing upfield and jeopardizing their rush lanes, giving the quarterback an out. I want the walls to close in. And I think if we play zone behind that, we play good, solid zone behind that, Brown will hold the football, and there'll be opportunities to make a play on the quarterback. The last thing I wanted to point out here is, and this is an example of it on this particular play, Miami needs to be aware of when USF, or any team for that matter, with a running quarterback goes empty. It's usually a telltale sign of the ball coming out very quickly, or a design quarterback run. And even CJ Carr, who's not the same athlete that Brown is, he found success. And it kind of surprised me that Miami was surprised that the quarterback was going to be the primary ball carrier at times. So we definitely need to solve for that. I think just awareness, just understanding situational football in those circumstances, understanding your opponent will go a long way in terms of mitigating the quarterback rush. All right, so that's going to do it. A quick one for our very first video, but I wanted to get this one out as soon as possible with the game coming up here a little bit later this afternoon. Looking forward to seeing Miami get the W. If you like the content, want to see more of the content, do me a favor, like and subscribe. There's going to be more content, but if you want to jump on board this train, definitely like and subscribe.